Hello everybody, welcome to Also Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and drop a like on this video. I'm trying to hit 100k subscribers on the channel by the end of the year, so your subscription will be much appreciated. Also drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and makes a massive difference. Yeah. Actually no. Shit. I'm not done with my NBA episode, so I can't promote that. It'll probably come out tomorrow. Even though I said I'd do it every other day, stuff happens. So this video is a video that I do pretty much like every 6 months or so, but I decided that this would be better as like a second channel series from here on out because, to be completely honest, it's pretty lazy. Like, I just have to pick someone I think is underrated on each team and then give you a brief explanation as to why. And I don't like that for my main type of content, but here I'm happy to be as lazy as humanly possible. So with that said, here is the most underrated player on every team in the Western Conference. Starting with the Utah Jazz, I have Royce O'Neal. Royce is the starting power forward on this team typically, although that can go back and forth, and it might be different now that they've added Rudy Gay to the roster, though I'd personally still keep Royce in that spot. Royce is just a good perimeter defender, and he hits his spot up threes. It's always good to have one of those guys who just isn't going to take a lot of shots and is okay with that, and that's exactly what he is. Similar to like a PJ Tucker type of role, though I don't think he's quite as good as that in that specific instance, but good defender, good floor spacer, would fit on literally any basketball team. For the Phoenix Suns, I have to go Landry Shamet. I've been a Landry Shamet guy for a long time now. It doesn't really feel like he's been given the proper opportunity, because I really think that as a shooter, if he was given, like, let's say a Seth Curry role, he could easily be like a 15-point per game guy and shoot like 7-8 threes a game and be really good at it. But he doesn't really get that opportunity. Part of that is because he's a poor defender, but at the same time, that has not stopped players such as Seth Curry, who's the example I'm going to use again, because it's like he's an elite shooter, so we're going to put him out there. Landry has not really been given that opportunity, and he's just been a backup two guard, and I don't think that's really going to happen with the Suns either, unfortunately. For the Nuggets, I have to go Aaron Gordon, and I say this purely based on the reaction to his contract extension. Was it a little bit more than I would have paid him? Sure. But it also wasn't a drastic overpay. I think Gordon's worth like $20 million a year because he's a really, really good defensive player, and then he fits well within the Nuggets offensive system, even if he's not hitting his threes. So good player there. For the Clippers, I got Ivica Zubac, who is just really, really solid at the center position. And I think often underappreciated for it. Now, he was getting his ass kicked in the Maverick series with the Luka switches, but at the same time, that was kind of inevitable, and that's an extreme outlier. From a night-to-night basis, Zubac is more than fine at that center position, and, well, you know, it's good to just be solid. You don't always have to be a great player. Really, nobody on this list is some great player secretly. They're just good. For the Mavericks, I have to go either Maxi Kleber or Dorian Finney-Smith. Really, both of them, I'd say, are close to equally good. They're just both fantastic role players. Maxi's a little bigger and a little bit better at defending bigger players. Dorian, I think, is a little bit more skilled overall as a defender, but just because he's smaller, he does a little bit less. But both capable three-point shooters, and Dorian is more of an athlete and transition guy. But, you know, both really good and talented defensive players who fill in their role offensively. I think the Mavericks need a playmaker out there and some other guys who can do more on offense than just finish plays. But these are good. These guys are serviceable at that nonetheless. If you want to see someone put a playmaker next to Luka and you want to see the Mavericks be building around Luka more properly, go check out my Dallas Mavericks series. It hasn't really been a proper built around him yet, just because the first 2 years is just kind of waiting for salary to clear, so 2023 is free agency, but that it will be built well around him once that time comes. For the Portland Trail Blazers, I will go Larry Nance Jr. I feel like people use Larry Nance Jr. almost as a scapegoat for the offseason that the Blazers had, because the thing is, they needed to make major changes, and as good as Larry Nance Jr. is, he's not a major change. That said, pretty much all you could ask for out of a role-playing center, because he can both space the floor, not at a great rate, but, you know, passable enough. He's a good defensive player. He's a good finisher, and he actually, I think he's not even a bad playmaker either, if I recall correctly. So he just kind of does everything well enough, and for the money that he gets and for the minutes that he gets, he more than suits the job. For the Lakers, I'm going to go Malik Monk. I don't know why there are so many people not slotting him at the starting two-guard spot, and maybe even the Lakers plan on putting Wayne Ellington out there. But honestly, Malik Monk might not be as good of a shooter as Wayne, but I think he's going to be a more capable defensive and overall offensive player just because he's, better defense. I mean, he's not a good defender, but he's better than he's better than Wayne Ellington. And I just think last year he shot like 40% from three on like 5-6 attempts per game. I think he's a very good shooter, and I would rather start him over Wayne Ellington personally. After that, the Grizzlies, I'm going to go with Tyus Jones. Not only is Tyus Jones overrated by NBA fans in general, but he's underrated within the Grizzlies because he really does not get opportunity as he should. He was having his minutes taken away by Justice Winslow, who was the worst offensive player in the league last year. Meanwhile, Tyus Jones is an efficient shooter and an efficient playmaker. He's not out there making crazy plays all the time, and some people might scoff at NBA nerds saying that he's really good because he averages like 6 points and 3 assists, but he is really, really talented offensively in terms of just being solid on that end. And then defensively, it's not like he's bad. So I would take the player who's just not going to make mistakes as my backup point guard over someone who has like a 35% true shooting percentage. So I don't know what's going on in Memphis with that one. For the Warriors, Jordan Poole. I've been on the Jordan Poole train for a while now, ever since he started to break out after coming back from injury in the previous season. Initially, I was actually very low on Jordan Poole because I thought, he seemed like just a typical shot-chucking guy who takes shots that he's just not good enough to make. And then second year comes around and he's making them. So big improvement there. And I think he's going to be one of the league's best six men for a while. And I actually think under the proper circumstances, he could be like a 20-point-per-game scorer in a way that's not like just, some guy has to shoot the ball. Like I think he could actually be a 20-point guy if he just got starters minutes. After him with the Spurs, we have Keldon Johnson. Keldon is a very interesting player because sometimes he looks like a star right now, and then sometimes he just is kind of a chill role player. But the thing about Keldon that makes me believe in him now and long term is the fact that he just goes for it all the time. Like he is like in a similar vein to like Russell Westbrook, where it's like that guy is never taking any time off. He's going for it all the time. And sometimes that can be detrimental with him, just like it is with Russell Westbrook. But at the end of the day, you have to admire that. And I think even if that could lead to a lack of polish down the line, it overall is going to take you really high places. And I think Keldon is going to be a star player one day, or at the very least in a tier close to that. Already he's good, but I think he could be great. He's a really good finisher, and he's really strong, and he's just like a freight train going to the basket sometimes. His three ball is very inconsistent. If I'm not mistaken, there was a part of the season where he was shooting well, and then he just kind of stopped doing that. But he's also a good ball handler, decent size, and I think he's going to be good. For the Pelicans, Jonas Valanciunas, I was of the opinion for a while that like the best player on the Grizzlies was kind of a tie between Ja and Jonas. I think Ja's more important to the team, but Val was like not far from it, especially because he was relatively consistent. But yeah, he is just a good center overall. Defensively, he's not the best just because of his lack of versatility, but he's at the very least good at protecting the basket. But his post game is fantastic, and he's a really good rebounder, especially offensively. He's even started hitting threes occasionally. He's got a good mid-range game, so he's just really, really, really solid. I feel like I'm saying that about a lot of players here, but I have an admiration towards players that are just good at what they do. They don't have to excel, but if you are just going to be solid at the things I need you to be good at, then I'm not going to complain. For the Sacramento Kings, I'm going to go Marvin Bagley. And my reasoning for why I think Marvin Bagley is a little underrated is because a lot of people have dismissed the notion of him being a good... Now, the reason why I think Marvin Bagley is underrated is because a lot of people have dismissed the notion of him being a good NBA player one day, but he is a, solid enough offensive player right now. The issue is he's just been not healthy. So my thing is, if Marvin Bagley gets health and he gets the opportunity, I think Marvin could still be a really good NBA player. It's just a matter of him not being healthy, and people have taken the not being healthy thing and turned it into the him not being good thing, when it's like, when he's actually on the floor, he's pretty good offensively. Defensively, not so much, but offensively, at the very least, Marvin Bagley is a very talented player. For the Timberwolves, Malik Beasley, I don't feel like a lot of people realize that Malik Beasley averaged 19 points per game last year on really good efficiency, and he's one of the best three-point shooters in the league, one of the more slept-on players in the league. For the Thunder, Alexei Pokachevsky. To be completely honest, Alexei is probably not very good right now, but I feel like his potential is underrated and underappreciated, and I think there is going to be a couple of seasons from now where Alexei is a pretty damn good NBA player. Now, there is a little bit concerned that he could potentially end up being like a Bruno Caboclo, where it's like 2 years away from 2 years away from 2 years away from 2 years away, but I do think he has shown enough flashes and had enough good games to suggest that within 2-3 years, Alexei is going to be a really damn solid NBA player. And for the Rockets, a lot of these have been young players, not entirely, but for the most part. But for the Rockets, I went with Daniel Tice. Daniel, I think, as a starting center is fine, but as a backup with the Bulls, he was damn good, and it kind of sucked to see him go because I really liked watching him play in the minutes that he did. He played like 20 minutes or so, but spacing the floor, good defense, finishing well enough at the basket. He does complain about fouls a little too frequently, but at the end of the day, I'm not freaking out about that. So yeah, he's pretty damn good. Those are my Western Conference most underrated players. Stay tuned because tomorrow's video is going to be the Eastern Conference, obviously. But yeah, that is it. Goodbye.